we're live.
Oh.
Good evening, people. Welcome to Theology Thursdays. I'm Terrell Harris, and this is.
Brooke Harris. And we're here with Tara and Joe. Hey,
All right. So, one of the things I wanted, or what I wanted to chat about today, it's been a stormy day in the DC metropolitan area, and Brooke and I joke around because it always seems like on Thursdays it rains or is a chance of rain.
Mm-hmm.
So, the idea I came up with was finding peace in the midst of your storm. Do me a favor, read this for me. So it's Mark 4:35 through about 40.
41 or 40? I have that 41.
41.
On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd behind, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. Other boats were with him. A great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased, and there was a dead calm. He said to them, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?"
May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of the words. I hadn't heard that in a long time. I just felt moved to say that. Amen. Okay, so for those who don't know, just to give you a little bit of context, what's happening in this particular passage is Jesus is asleep on the boat. He's with his 12 disciples, and he's just coming off of, I wouldn't say a ministry effort, but he had been preaching and doing things like that. So what they're doing is crossing the Sea of Galilee, and what's happening is there's a storm brewing, and it's getting pretty crazy for the disciples, and they're getting real nervous. So they're like, how can Jesus be asleep in the midst or the middle of this? Like, come save us, do something, like if you're the Messiah. So also to give you some context in terms of the actual makeup of the Sea of Galilee, most of the precipitation occurs in the wintertime, and usually it's short and very heavy storms. So the storms in the Sea of Galilee are pretty violent at times. What else did they say about it? The Sea of Galilee is a major food resource. So I think I read somewhere like in 2005 they fished out like 300 tons of tilapia, and a lot of at least the surrounding areas, I think about 80% of their fresh water source comes from this particular sea. This is a freshwater sea. So that just gives you the context. And then as it relates to the actual text, at least 4 of the disciples were fishermen. So they should have been aware or not necessarily in this predicament before, but at least they were familiar with fishing and boats and stuff like that. So the question I have for the group is, what stands out to you in the story, or what piques your interest, if anything? Yep. Or what questions do you have about the text?
I think one of the things that comes up for me is just when Jesus was like, well, actually, 2 parts based on what he said. One, he was like, "Peace be still," and then he was like, "Have you no faith?"
Yeah.
But he was just like, "Oh gosh, the wind, peace be still." Like, just shut this down right now. And then the other part of him saying, like, "Where's your faith?"
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was important because I was driving today in the storm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I walked outside, it was drizzling. I got in my car, and I mean, I jumped at a certain point because it was thunder, it was raining really hard, and I saw the lightning, and it, the light flashed, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so Jesus is just kind of saying to them, like, "Where's your faith?" And I'm thinking, this is scary. So imagine being on a boat.
Yeah.
Without the protection of the automobile, and maybe they're out, or maybe they're in compartments in the boat, but it's still not the same as my car to be that scary and be like, where's your faith? Like, that's all I need.
Yeah.
It's just some faith, and this will work out because this feels really scary and like we're gonna tip over.
Yeah. Well, to put a pin in something you said in terms of Jesus calming the wind, it sometimes it reads as kind of soft, like peace be still, because I think we associate that word with peace or calmness with peace, but actually it was like a rebuke. So it was like when I read like the commentary, it says it was like he was casting out a demon.
Mm.
So it's not like peace be still. It's more like a forceful peace be still instead of just like peace. I think anytime I typically hear it, it's sort of like I think when I hear it read, even when I hear it read in church, I picture like butterflies or something. But it's more forceful. Like he was like yanking
Yeah.
the wind out.
And I don't think I think of it as soft.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily think of it like you're saying. I think I thought of it more as kind of like dismissive, kind of like, okay, just calm it down, Storm. Okay, what's up with y'all? Like, but I see what you're saying, that there was more force, that he's actually
Yeah, it's
giving more power
it's
to that.
Any questions you guys have about the text?
I would have just. I always just wonder when they say in some version, I think it's King James Version says, "What manner of man is this?" But just that question of like, at that point, was it amazement? Like, I wonder if they were like, "This is amazing," or if they were like, "Who is this dude?" Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Like maybe more fearful?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anything about you?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that he decided to calm the storm. Sounds like almost like immediately, but
Yeah.
maybe it was after hours. I don't know. Instead of like letting them stick through the storm,
Mhm.
it's like really test their faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
That's
in
a
real
good
life,
point.
Sometimes you have to stick through that storm.
Yeah.
Just like
Good
over.
point. We got to talk about that. Good point. I like where you're going.
But maybe Jesus knew that they weren't faith-filled enough to stick through.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point.
Because I think sometimes we get rescued out of storms because we ain't gonna make it. Then we just gotta try again in a couple months. But
So here's some of the questions that popped up for me, and like just looking at the text. What in the world happened to the other boats? Because it says there in the beginning, it says there were other boats, and they just kind of disappeared. That's just a random question.
Mm-hmm.
Does God and/or Jesus care about us in the midst of our troubles? Because the disciples seem pretty desperate, especially. Well, so there's a few things that pop up for me. Either the disciples were very desperate and scared, and they just kind of leaned on Jesus, or they may have forgot about their training because they were so scared.
Yeah.
So that's what pops up with me. Like, did Jesus care, or like you said, is it that Jesus was going to let them kind of wrestle with the storm first, and then all right, I'll get up and help you guys since you're kind of crying out for me. Since they were fishermen, why didn't the disciples turn back instead of going through the storm? So like even today, I remember as it was starting to rain and I was on campus at work. I was having a conversation. I had to go to one of the other buildings, and I was having a conversation. And I could see like the clouds coming, the wind start going, and I decided to go outside because I thought I could make it back before it started raining. And then in the midst of that, you could see it getting dark and stuff like that. It started to get windy. I'm like, all right, I got to get out of here. So let me run back to my desk because I didn't want to get rained on. So why, especially since you have fishermen and they know how to navigate the sea, why couldn't they just go back to shore? Were they so far out that they couldn't go back, or did they actually think they can make it through and then it just got too rough for them, so they kind of panicked? So that's one of the questions I have. And last question, and I think I touched on this: was this an unfamiliar place, or did fear and emotion just overtake them? So were they just so scared, like that they forgot their training and what they've actually been through? So other things about this particular story that I wanted to touch on and just point out, a lot of the miracles that Jesus did revolved around the Sea of Galilee. So this particular commentary says that outside of Jesus subduing the sea, he casts out legion of demons. He heals a woman who has been ill for 12 years. He raises a young girl who has just died. So in the context of the sea, in the context of storms and everything like that, there's a lot of miracles happening, right? So I think what we noticed, because in Jesus doing ministry in an area that has the potential to have a lot of shakiness, it's almost as if the shakiness is expected, especially if we're gonna like do for Jesus, he's doing good work. So I think he kind of expected it to happen. Like I'm doing good work. The storm, I think, could actually be seen as like the enemy or something that's gonna deter him, because it deters his disciples. They're like freaked out, and they're traveling with him on the journey. So I think they get a little bit shaken by actually what's going on, right? So as it relates to those things that are laid out, the question I have for us is, where do you see yourself in the story?
Present day life?
It could be present, it could be past.
Oh, you're talking about a past life. You're saying it's
Not present life, not past life.
Not
present day
past
life. Like past life.
On my seventh one. I definitely am though. I've had to ask myself the question, where is your faith? Many a time. I remember most recently when my dad was really sick, like I just was a hot mess when I was back in Ohio. And I was driving to church one day and I literally pulled over and I had to get myself together. And that was what I just kept asking myself over and over, because I think sometimes we lose sight of who we claim to be God and what we claim God to be for us. And so
I'm still thinking. Where am I in the story? I think I would definitely have to agree. I can relate to what you said about the faith. Where is my faith? Because I think I struggle with that at times, especially when I'm thinking about certain goals that I have and how I'm working toward them. I have to look at in the greater vision. For my life, I have to kind of at times question, like, where's my faith in this? How am I off track at times? How did I get to this point? Like, and how can I get out of this point? So where is my faith in the midst of this, as opposed to getting bogged down with, some of the negative self-talk I do at times. Ooh, sorry. Yeah, I'm one of them disciples too, talking about what the heck is going on here? What you doing?
I didn't mean it that like I'm positive about what
Right.
But I'm like the disciple, but I also ask the same question Jesus asked to myself.
Right.
Because the boat is rocking. Man's about to be overboard.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like I'm probably pretty similar to the disciples. I think more recently, since I've been back into religion, like after not going to church or really having religion in my life for years, I've tried to be more of like step out on faith. So like maybe now in my life I would be more like, okay, we're full steam ahead in this rocky boat that's about to tip over, but let's just keep going.
Oh, like Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A little, yeah.
Okay.
Try to be.
You weren't trying to say that, but I thought I would.
Directly
out.
Put it on over there.
Yeah. One of the things that points out like that I've been wrestling with is the notion of actually having to go through the storm, because nobody acts in this particular story. There's no question whether or not they have to go through the storm. They just kind of set sail and the storm pops up. And so for me, I think what it is do I necessarily need to be in these storms? I mean, because what I see is that oftentimes, like for us to experience storms and to know how to navigate through them, it takes a lot of experience. And the thing is, all right, so I'm not gonna say I'm a master storm navigator or whatever the terminology is, but at times, should I avoid certain things, or am I testing myself when I don't need to be tested? And I think, at least for me, I forget to ask, like, all right, is this a storm I have to sit in and try to sift my way through? Or am I supposed to chill out, hang out, or go around the storm or find a different path? And I don't know at times. Like, it's sometimes you kind of just take it on, and then when you're in it, you kind of like flailing your arms, like, oh, I don't want to go through this. And I think other times we willingly take it on. Like, oh, we can see it coming, and you're like, you know what? I'm prepared. I'm gonna go head first into this storm, and then when we get there, we're like, maybe this wasn't a good idea. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. I see wheels turning. Any thoughts?
I don't know. This not really a thought. It just came to mind about like, I don't know where I'm going with this. I didn't even say it, but I was thinking like the phrase "storm chaser" came to mind for me.
Oh, in relationship to me?
Yeah, in relationship to the conversation.
Maybe that was God speaking to you to speak to me that I need to stop chasing storms.
No, or that sometimes it's okay to be a storm chaser because sometimes it's those things that make you stronger and help you to develop more of who you are. They suck. But if you can be okay with being a storm chaser in the metaphorical sense,
Yeah.
because not really, I mean, people chase storms for real, but, you know, it can make a difference as opposed to like looking at the storm like, oh no, I don't want to go there. Because for a lot of us, it's the storm and going through the storm that build our strength.
Yeah.
That shows us who we really are, that impact us in ways that we would not have been impacted had we not gone through this thing. And sometimes it's the storm where we can develop the vision for our life, where we can just do things that we would not have been able to do before. So I don't know. Thinking.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I definitely think that the storm's necessary. I don't know if that's what is that what you were hinting at? I heard the tail end of whatever you just said.
Thank you.
Distraction
Thank you
back
for
here.
full focus.
For those who don't know, we got a lot going on. There's kids, there's people playing chess. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think it can be necessary. But
Sometimes you get pushed in, though. Like,
yeah.
sometimes you just kind of find yourself in it.
Right. And that's what I was saying the other week, that maybe sometimes it's not always about us. That I can go through this storm for you. You know? So I think
That's hard to accept, though.
Yeah.
Because
I
don't know if there's ever been a storm that's fun or comfortable or,
Right.
and to know that I'm doing this for Brooke, like,
Yeah.
I mean, no matter, not
Right.
you,
No,
but,
I get what you're
even
saying.
like parents that have to do stuff for their children, like, I think that is very difficult, and at some point, it also probably calls on the person going through the storm's faith,
Right.
because they might not need that storm,
Right.
they might not need that lesson, but
Right.
you're right, it is to show someone else X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And that's when we often ask, why me?
And absolutely, but think about how many of us get to a point where we're doing certain things in our life where we're saying, God, what am I here to do on this earth? And how some of that connects with the things that we've been through. That, I know someone who she wrote a book, and it's about healing from sexual abuse, and it's about faith and all these different things, but it came out of her being a sexual abuse survivor. So we don't think about it in that moment, because who is? I mean, you've gone through something absolutely horrific, and yet this is the very thing that is a part of the vision for her, which is going to help somebody else.
Ooh, I want to hop in. I'm excited. No, but I'm glad that you raised that point about going through things for certain other people, because if you look at outside of Jesus, if you look at the biblical characters, including the disciples in this instance, they all went through things, not necessarily for us 3, 4, 5, 10,000 years later. They just went through them. And somebody wrote them down, and we were able to learn from their stories. And I think for us, because we uphold the text as sacred, like we don't consider our own stories sacred texts or sacred writings that may not be written. So one of the things I used to tweet out is like your story is just as important as any biblical character, and it is. It's not just for the context of being alive, but your story lays the foundation for your family. It can lay the foundation for your friends and people. I mean, people just watching you go through things. What happened?
I gotta chill.
Oh,
I like that.
Okay. Well, you messed up.
Sorry, no, because you're thinking about that. Looking at ourselves as having our own sacred story.
Yeah, it's definitely sacred.
Yeah, I like that.
Now it's challenging, especially when you figure out what your calling is, and then in the context of that, you get thrown in these whirlwind storms. Because ultimately, I think, at least especially for me, thinking of some of the stuff I'm going through, if I can't benefit from this particular storm, at times I'm gonna be like pissed. You know, like all this can't be for somebody else.
Right.
So I understand that I can get to the pearly gates and all that stuff like that, but to try to get tossed in the boat all the time and then the idea that your reward is in heaven. That's a little. I would hope.
Right.
I would hope some blessings get sprinkled down. But I think because we take the Bible as such sacred text, we don't necessarily take the time to write or even tell our stories. So if our parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles have been through storms, just speaking in the African American context, we don't necessarily exactly. See, we don't necessarily like to share our storm story. So then, ultimately, say for instance, me and Brooke, when we become parents, if we don't share the troubles, like the real deep stuff that we went through, then our future generations will have to go through their own storms, which could actually be avoided. So that's actually an excellent point that you brought up in terms of going through it for other people.
I've had that same conversation about sharing your story with my family recently, because I have gotten to the place where I have been sharing, not unfortunately, I have been forced to share my story and to pull people out of very dark places relationship-wise, because for those of you that don't know me, I have gone through a very difficult divorce, and at the time I had no idea why, but since then I have been able to I want to use the word minister. My dad asked me if I was called to preach yesterday, by the way.
My
dad asked me if I was called to preach, and I said, shut your mouth, sir.
You've got a runner. Okay.
But I have been able to, since then, really help 3 of people that are very different, one of them being my niece, come from very dark places. And as far as in my family, I am one of 4, and 3 of us were victims of molestation, 1 rape. My mother told us that she had been molested when she was like 45, and it was the first time she had ever spoken it to anyone. She has a twin sister, same thing happened to her twin. But it's just those stories that she carried that for almost 50 years, not speaking a word of it to anyone. And then, 3 of her kids were molested, and so, that's just a darker side of the story, but since then we've had, my nieces have had issues with sexual assault. It's just, that's a small piece, but if we are able to have those conversations, our daughters and our sons will be able to say, this is not okay, because their parents or their aunts or their grandparents have the courage to tell their story, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's almost as if our storm story is it's now like a warning signal for other individuals. Actually, like what I think about when you say that and the way you framed it is it becomes like our storm stories actually become a lighthouse in the midst of
Somebody
darkness.
else's storm as well.
Absolutely.
Somebody else's storm. So it's like, well, we've navigated this area. We're familiar with it.
Can mark it.
We can
show
mark it.
it.
Here are the rocks. You're still gonna have to go through some rough water.
It's a shipwreck.
Yeah, you're still gonna have to go through some rough water, but here's a light. We gonna point you in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It just kind of it got deep for a moment. So I had to take a break. So we answered that. So with that said, do you have something else? No. So with that said, when we take on these storms, or we're going through them, or if we found ourselves in situations where we're kind of holding on to that storm memory, whether we were shipwrecked or whether it was just a rough experience, how do we find peace? How do we then be like Jesus, to where when situations arise again, we can be a little bit more peaceful, not necessarily laid out with our feet on the bed, and on the pillow, but how can we be more at peace with storm-like situations? Or how have you come to peace? Outside of praying, 'cause that's usually the typical answer.
I was going to say, I think spiritual connection with God has been one of my biggest pieces of how to come to peace.
When you say that, just prayer or different things?
Different things.
Okay.
Like
I
what?
said I can't say prayer.
You said like
Since I
what?
can't say
Say
prayer.
prayer.
No, but in
Okay.
addition to prayer.
There have been scriptures that have gotten me through storms. Since I can't say prayer.
So prayer.
Sermons.
Prayer. I mean, you can say
Music.
music.
But yeah, definitely a connection with the divine. Relationship with people, outside resources, books, and more depressed time, medicine. There's a whole plethora of things that I think.
Yeah.
Pinning that right there. So this is people online, people here. So since Brooke has a background in mental health, I don't want to create an environment to where we don't think Jesus and God and the Spirit can heal stuff. But my perspective, medicine was placed here for a reason. So if anybody has any mental health issues, whether it's depression or anything, medicine is actually okay. I think.
And so is therapy.
So medicine and therapy is actually okay. And I think we actually have to start looking at these tools and resources as gifts from God, as opposed to man-made things that we can just lean on Jesus in the Bible. So that's a public service announcement for mental health and medicine we need.
Physical health as
Physical
well.
health, yeah, that too.
But I definitely think mental health.
Yeah.
Good plug. Just plug, good plug.
So anything else as it relates to? Okay.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, in addition to that, like, depending upon what the storm is, sometimes I usually try to compare. So, like, if I made it through that, I can definitely make it through this, even if it lasts longer. It's not nearly as intense as that last.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
I've had some things I can compare. And you can compare. For me, it's easy to compare them at certain points.
Yeah.
But then when it gets a little rocky, that comparison sometimes for me is like, well, I know I went through this, but it's never comfortable to keep going through the same thing over and over again.
Right.
But I think at a certain point, maybe some of your teaching, your training, or your spirituality kicks in,
Yeah.
to where you could get yourself or navigate back into a peaceful situation, back into the realm of peace with God.
Yeah. I think for me it's been a variety of things: prayer, journaling, therapy, sharing honestly with people in my life, especially. Excuse me. I have a history of not sharing, and so I've had to be very purposeful about sharing. What else have I used? Books, hearing other people's stories that I can connect with, and acceptance. That has helped me as well. Like learning two things: learning to accept what it is that happened, and not saying that what happened was my fault, and then if it was my fault, owning that this was my fault, and also forgiveness, not necessarily in conversation, like if it happened in terms of a relationship with someone else, not necessarily in talking with them, but just having that space within myself to really think about forgiveness, to see where I need to forgive myself for certain things, whether I made certain decisions, or like I know for me, having a trauma past, a personal trauma past, having to look at forgiveness for myself as, okay, this was not my fault. This is what I went through, or this is how this affected me, and it affected me negatively, and that's okay, and I can grow from that. So having that kind of internal dialogue and even prayer about that has been very helpful as well.
Anything else?
That was enough.
So I came up with a list of things that I just found that may be helpful. First one is visualization. So when you talk about visualization, it's about seeing your reality or the realm outside of the storm or right past the storm. And I think we could even like literally we could do this too, because at times when there's storms, you can look at the sky and you'll see like a little bit of sun shining through. So visualizing like, you know what, this is going to be short, or it could be lengthy, but on the other side of the clouds, like the sun is always actually there. So visualization, trying to see, you know what, this is a difficult time, but the next situation is going to be better, whether it's the next relationship, the next job, anything that you might be, struggling with. So to piggyback on the visualization, what I'll do is I'll skip to affirmations. So they say affirming, or get a little stickies and just kind of write a little affirmations. So as it relates to some of the things I've just mentioned, maybe like if the storm is causing you to doubt some of your skill set, write that on your sticky, like, I'm a great public speaker, or I'm going to be great at making relationships, or I'm going to get a job, or I'm going to be working in my calling, or I'm going to be working in my field. So you just want to say that to yourself every day. Typically, one of the things I would do is I have to get back to it. And it's weird because now I realize like stormy situations kind of throw you off your game plan. And so I have affirmations in my phone. So one of the first things I used to do is get up, scroll through my prayers, hopefully not click on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and then I would go through my prayers, and then at the end it was affirmations. But then when you get in these stormy places, it's like, man, do I really want to get up and deal with this storm, knowing that the ship is shaky? So instead of reaching for my tool set, I just
want to throw the phone.
Yeah, throw the phone, or just not even, do what I'm supposed to do. So there's that. Meditation, which we mentioned. Let's see what else we have here that hasn't been mentioned. Acceptance, Brooke mentioned that. Sometimes you're in a storm, there's nothing you can do about it, so you just have to accept where you're at.
Or accept that the storm happened.
That too. Yeah. Acceptance. Oh, no, I said that. Never lose hope. So never losing hope. In our story in Mark, I'm not sure if the disciples actually had a hope. I think they it was just a long shot. Like, let's call on Jesus because we've seen him do miracles. But I don't think there was like extreme hope, like they were going to make it out of this situation, because they were kind of panicking. So hope. taking in the training experience. So actually realizing, and I think we've mentioned this in the context of our conversation, that sometimes the storm may be a training experience, whether it's for us or whether it's for somebody else, which is always rough.
In the midst of, it's definitely rough.
Yeah.
Versus reflecting back on.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
as hard for me.
I think it can be rough even if we saw the storm coming and there's nothing we could do about it, and we know like, oh man, like we have an idea like, well, maybe I have to go through this because there's something better on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we get in it, we may be thinking like, well, why in the world did I have to go through this?
Right.
So just taking in that and accepting like this is gonna prepare me for my next level or for what God has for me right on the outset of that. So.
Can I jump in?
Yep.
All of these sound great, but they require faith at some point.
Good point.
What about a person that has no hope, no faith? Affirmations aren't going to work. Visualizing me being out of the storm is not going to work for me. And I don't think the storm is going to happen. You know what I mean? And I think like because all of us here have, I would say, a good solid foundation in spirituality and connection with the divine, but perhaps there's a viewer that's just like faithless, you know?
Yeah, good point.
Or hopeless?
Or
You mean
hopeless.
hopeless?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I think that's a good point. And so what stands out to me in that instance is either the individual is going to have to find a story that works in parallel with their story so they can receive hope. Because not everybody's going to receive hope from Scripture. We can be honest about that. I mean, some of us are raised in the church, so we're taught to lean on that. So these stories, which some people may think as real, some people may think they're metaphors, not everybody's going to receive. So some people are going to have to receive real life. You know what? I've been there where you're at. Things get better on the other side. So whether it's real life situations, which can come in relationships, they can come in testimony, they can come in books, or the individual is really just going to have to reflect on things that they've been through. So it's kind of hard to look back at certain situations and sometimes figure out like, oh, I didn't even realize like that was preparing me for this next thing. But I think it's a matter of reflecting back on past hurts, struggles, and pains to realize like, all right, maybe I can't handle this.
I think bottom line is support. Like people in your life, period. Because if you feel hopeless, which means that you either aren't really sharing with people or you might not have enough people in your life who can be of support for you, it just probably will feel impossible. But I've seen, even for myself, but especially for other people, other patients and clients that I work with, when you have support, you can do a lot more and believe a lot more. Even if you say, I don't believe in God, you will believe in yourself in ways that you didn't when you have people around you who are going to support you and be consistent in your life. So I think that is huge. Because your question is funny because I was thinking at a certain point, how does this work for people who struggle financially, like they're poor, and they have to work these jobs that still isn't making enough money. They have, all this stuff going on. How does that work? And you have to have that support and have to have something to look forward to. Hope, people, a goal. You have to have something. Because if you don't have that, then it probably will feel like, yep.
So you raise an excellent point, right? Because the disciples were 12 individuals, men, who at that point were scared out of their minds, right? So they were probably all working together. There was one central figure that actually gave them hope. So in the context of somebody who may not have a connection to a church, or their spiritual connection may be dwindling, like that Jesus figure can be an individual. Now, we don't have to look at this person as God, but the person can't, like, I tend to hear, like, if you want to grow and stuff like that, you have to be around people who are more successful than you and, who bring the value of your circle up. So I think it's important, like you said, like if we don't have connections, if there's somebody watching without a connection, you have to get somebody in your circle that has experience, that can maybe coach you through this, and that can actually play the role, not of Christ in terms of Savior, but play the role as somebody who is not going to be scared. Somebody who's just like, calm down. It'll be good.
Yeah.
And sometimes somebody that will listen or whatever,
Right. Right. Who will listen? Who will be there? Who can?
And if you don't have anybody, the open box can be there for somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Good plug. I like that. Good plug. But the thing about that is, even in the midst of it, so that person in your circle probably shouldn't be soft with you neither, because Jesus wasn't soft with the disciples. He called them out.
Someone that can
He called them out like, it was like, what's up with your faith? Like, what's going on with you? Nobody's gonna sugarcoat your situations. I mean, somebody who will care, but then also rough you up if they have to.
That's a great. Or not.
Drill sergeant, you in the shape. Like, get up. No?
Moment's over.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really important. It really does make a difference.
Thanks for calling me out, because as I was reading, I felt the energy over here like, well, those sound good.
Her BS meter went high. Okay.
I'll tell you why.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, here's another interesting one I thought of. When we're in the middle of our storms, we have to toss baggage over, right?
Have to toss what?
Baggage.
Oh.
Like things that don't belong, right? So I typically think of things like when we're going through rough situations, you get those, sometimes you hear those thoughts that will kind of try to weigh you down, because maybe you may feel, or you may went through a storm that was so rough that you feel like you may not be able to manage or anything like that. So I think we carry a lot of baggage around that kind of weighs us down, whether it's past hurts and past pains. And I think when we go through a storm, or after we finish a storm, at a certain point we have to analyze and really think about the situation, and not let it prevent us from being able to navigate through another storm or being afraid. So I think we have to let go of a lot of our baggage as it relates to past issues.
Yeah, and some people gotta be kicked to the curb.
Yeah, some people gotta go too.
Those are always fun. Okay. Not serious, but no, yeah, I think you're right. People and thoughts have to be kicked to the curb a lot of times, and the thought part both can be very challenging in different ways. Because sometimes the people you have to kick to the curb can be friends you've had for a long time. They can be family members, and not like, oh, I'll never talk to them again. But sometimes you have to create a certain amount of distance so that you won't keep encountering the same thing over and over again. But I think also with the thought, like really being mindful of how we're thinking and being that have been successful, because it's easy to be in the midst of the storm, and I've been there where it's just like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get out of this? How is this going to change? Just going down the rabbit hole, as opposed to thinking about, well, in what ways have I been through things that were kind of similar? How did I navigate that? And it was kind of like what you were saying, like looking at, well, this one isn't as bad as that one, but also looking at, well, what did I do that was effective in that one that I can still use for this new one? And I think that makes a huge difference as well. And that was a little harder to do, because that means you have to hold yourself accountable to that, and I think that's a little more tricky for us to do, but it's important.
And I think that ties into my next point, which is knowing your limitations, your boundaries, and also your strengths as you go through these storms and things like that. So what I wanted to do, unless you guys have any other examples, there it goes. I wanted to read some quotes, and then we can end there. This one says, this one is from the Dalai Lama, I believe. Yes. It says, we can never obtain peace in the outer world until we make peace with ourselves. This one's from Eckhart Tolle. Let me see if I actually want to read this out loud. You find peace not by rearranging the circumstances of your life, but by realizing who you are at the deepest level.
They're kind of similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dalai Lama, that sounded more deep to me. Too many words together.
Lost her.
Yeah, quotes have to be short and to the point in these days. Yeah.
No, but yeah, I can totally agree. 'Cause a lot of times I've heard people, especially like spiritual teachers and all sorts of people like that, talk about your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. Yeah. That if you don't have the peace, if you have certain things going on within, you're just manifesting that outside of you. And I think it's interesting. I mean, sometimes I agree, sometimes I think it's a little bit harder because I don't think that's the case 100% of the time. But I can see that in some cases where, especially that, what was that phrase that they say, what you don't like in someone else you don't like in yourself. Like I did not get that for a long time until I finally got it and was like, oh, and I really saw how I did manifest something outside of me and have this experience that was really reflective of what was going on within me. And that experience, I mean, I was so frustrated and angry with it. And I'm like, wow, that's really indicative of what's going on in here. And when I can have a greater sense of clarity, understanding, and peace about me, then if this situation arises, I can deal with it better. And I can be more understanding of it and not feel that frustration and everything else about it.
Man, that's something deep from that, man. Yeah. So, like, the crazy thing about it is when you said that, it makes me think, when we come with baggage and we don't come with peace within ourselves, are we the ones that's creating the storm situations where we go? So it's like when you see the cartoon characters and they're walking around with clouds over their head and stuff like that, that's what comes to my mind. So if there's something going, and usually when there's something going on with individuals internally, spiritually, they'll lash out sometimes, and it creates havoc.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. That's what I got.
But you have to really get to a point where you can develop that sense of self-awareness.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're just going to keep going through stuff and not really getting it. Like, why do I keep going through this? So you might not even question it. You're just going to go through and feel like, oh, that's just how my life is. And your life does not have to be like that. But you have to get to that level where you can understand that.
Which will be a challenge in itself, but worth the challenge once you can get to it.
Absolutely. Cool.
That's all I got. You guys have anything else?
Awesome.
Man, that was deep. That was for me. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming.
I feel, I do praise dance. So thanks for joining us. What do I want to say? Kind of thing. So for those of you who are looking online or looking at the replay, you could join us at Wegmans Thursdays at 7 p.m. Also, go to the website, theopenbox.com. If you're interested in surfing, we do stuff every second Sundays. So we'll have another event coming up in the next couple of weeks. Please join our email list. And if you're looking for a community to grow, a community that's small and that will that you'll benefit from in terms of having relationships and actually, growing spiritually one-on-one, join us. Come on out. We're fun. We like to have fun, and we like to push the envelope a little bit in these conversations. So that's it. Peace and blessings. I'm Mr. Terrell Harris. And this is
Lander Brooke on Twitter.
On Twitter. And that is it. I don't know. I'm kind of thrown off because I got a little praise going on.
Thanks, guys.
Blessings.